Are you an HVAC professional looking to set your business apart? Then the Leading HVAC Podcast is your go-to resource. I'm Kimon Hines, coach and trainer at SVE. And in this podcast, we'll share stories of success and struggle from leaders in the HVAC industry. You'll hear from experienced executives, managers, and innovators, providing you with the hard-earned insights from their journeys. These insights will equip you with the knowledge you need to navigate challenges and truly lead in the ever-evolving HVAC world. Welcome back to the Leading HVAC Podcast. I'm your host, Kimon Hines. I'm super excited that you're here for another great episode. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to just remind you, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure that you have this as a part of your regular rotation of leadership information that you use in your business. Now, this episode is one that I know is going to give you a lot of value. And so here's a promise I want you to make to me. If this gives you value at the end, share it with someone else so they too can benefit. My guests today are Michael Culley and Dustin Kendall, and they are the CEO and COO of Culley Mechanical. Welcome, gentlemen, to the Leading HVAC Podcast.
Good morning, Kimon. Hey, Kimon, how are you?
I'm great, and I'm excited about this episode. And before we hit record, you guys gave me some things that I'm looking forward to hearing the unfolding of the story, some of the things that are behind the scenes of how Culley Mechanical, how it has, the two of you have grown as a partnership. So let me ask both of you, why did you get into the HVAC business and how long have you been in it?
I'll start. I kind of got into the business by default. This is what my family's done for a long time. Went to college, got my mechanical engineering degree, came back, went to work for a family business, HVAC contractor, and decided to start my own business. So it's kind of one of those things that just by default I wound up in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just real quick for me, kind of more of an accident for me, I guess you could say. My background, obviously, I started my career out in the manufacturing industry, got my bachelor's degree in supply chain management, went straight out of school, started out in the paper industry, worked in the automotive, and then I kind of went into consulting. So I've worked across a few different disciplines, and Michael and I had grown up together, both from a very small town called Paris, Tennessee. Went to school at the University of Tennessee together, and we're actually in the same fraternity. So kind of known each other our entire lives. Like Michael said, he started his business here in 2018. And, during the process of starting his business, we were, professional friends, having conversations pretty much about, things that he thought would work, potential people that he could hire for certain positions. So we stayed connected from that facet. But I think it was late 2020, early 2021, we really started having conversations more about the business, and it really turned into an opportunity for me to come be a part of it. So I've been here for 3.5, going on 4 years now, getting close to that 4-year mark. So I guess you can say I kind of stumbled into the field.
I love it. So for those who are watching this is, we don't have a lot of two people interviews. And so I always love the dynamic of seeing two people work together. And Michael and Dustin, they're a great team. I work with them as one of their coaches, and watching the two of them work together, it's a great partnership. And I think it's some lessons that we can learn in this interview on how you can complement your leadership with someone else. But I want to go back. You guys went to high school together, and
That's
then
right.
both of you are Vols. Is that the Tennessee,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Vols.
very
Okay. So stayed in touch. I'm curious, Dustin, because you said it's a funny story. How did how did Michael approach you to say, hey, I think we should
Well,
work
like I said,
together?
both of us obviously being professionals and friends, fraternity brothers, what have you, being from the same hometown, we kind of know a lot of the same people. So I think our first interaction, I used to work for an automotive company that has a manufacturing footprint here in Henry County, and Michael had obviously done some business with them from a commercial standpoint, and he was having trouble with invoicing. Well, I wasn't working there anymore, but he had given me a call. I still knew some of the corporate contacts on the accounts payable side at this company that we're talking about. So that's the first touch point. He was trying to get some past due invoices that were 60 plus days past due. He was trying to get some of those taken care of, and I was able to put him in contact with my friend that I had colleague that I made a connection with working there in accounts payable, and kind of gave him that touch point to get help. So that was the first point in time. And then a little bit after that, I think that he was starting to maybe try to find somebody that would work from an accounting standpoint, somebody to handle billing and payroll and things of that nature. And we messed around a little bit with names, potential people he could ask. Actually, one of my really good friends, I think at one point in time was a good target that he had planned to go after. And one day we were just texting about it. This is when I was doing consulting, working from home and traveling, and got real burnt out with that. And one day, jokingly, I was like, "Hell, man, you should just hire me." It was just a joke, we really didn't think anything about it at that point in time. But probably 6 months to a year later, we were having serious conversations about it, and the rest is history. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of how it started as a joke. When he started his business, we obviously talked through some professional things, and the next thing you know, I've got an office up here down the hall. So
That's so funny.
it's a really funny story.
Yeah. Now, Michael, I want you to take us back. 2018, right? You said you worked in a family business from 2012. 2018, you start your own business. What were some of the challenges you were facing as you were getting started? And just kind of even talk about what are some of the strengths you were bringing to the table as you were starting this business?
Yeah, so some of the biggest challenges that I was having was on the business side of things. I'd come from a engineering background, so the technical skills and project management, things like that came extremely easy to me, but I had very, very little experience from a business standpoint, and I had to learn myself. I spent a lot of time learning myself, but I knew that I wasn't proficient in that and that I needed some help. And starting out, we couldn't afford for help. I leaned on our accountants, things of that nature. And I felt like I could make a team and keep them motivated and keep a cohesive team. But as far as advancing the business on the business side of things, I was having a lot of struggles with that. And I needed some help and I needed a running mate. And I was really getting burnt out myself, but trying to wear all the hats all at one time. And things just fell into place.
Yeah. Michael, I think what you're saying, a lot of people who are watching this and listening to this can relate to, because as you mentioned, strong technical background, the work, that side of the business inside out, and you can show that part to people. But there might be another side of the business that you mentioned, the business side of it, that we may struggle with. And someone watching this might be relating to what you're saying, Michael, but their struggle is, how do I even go about looking for someone, finding someone that I can trust? And I think that's where a lot of people struggle with. How did you go about that? And then I want to know the other side of that conversation when Dustin said, "Hey, man, hire me." What was in your mind during that process? So talk about how you can find someone you can trust and you can transition your
So
story.
that was the most important thing to me, was having someone that I could trust. I've always had trouble with some of the finer details of the business, opening up about them, and finding somebody I could trust was the number one priority for sure. And all I could say is, if you're looking for somebody like that, to have your eyes wide open and be willing to go down any path. And like Dustin said, we talked about a few people from a professional capacity as friends, and I explored those paths. All of them were dead ends. And so at that point, I kind of wrote up a job description of what I was wanting somebody to be, or what roles I was wanting somebody to fill. And I presented that to Dustin and a couple other of my very close friends from school, and got their feedback on it and everything like that. And I guess one day, actually, I think that where we finally started to have a conversation about Dustin really coming to work, we went and did some work at his house. And Dustin, being the consultant that he is, and we replaced the capacitor, he texted me and he was like, man, that's a heck of a markup on a capacitor. And I texted him back and I said, it's time to get you out of the corporate world. And at this point in time, I don't think he mentioned this, but his wife was graduating from chiropractor school. And I think she had an opportunity maybe at that time to move back to Paris. And he really could have worked from wherever. He could work remote, but he was like, well, if you're serious, let's talk. And I said, oh, I'm very serious.
Wow.
And, because the trust had already been built there. I trusted him, was able to have open conversations for a long, long time leading up to this. So the trust was already laid there. And we just started talking. And it took us a few weeks to get to something that worked for both of us. But I would do it all over again,
That's
for sure.
I love it. I love how you just said that. I'd do it all over again. Now, here's a question I have because you guys were friends. I mean, high school, college, and seems like you guys, stayed friends after college. Some people might say, well, Dustin, Michael, weren't you afraid going into working together, running a business together, that there could be potential challenges with the friendship? It could affect the friendship if you guys have a disagreement at work. Was that something that you thought about and even pre-talked about before you got into it?
I'll go first. You want?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can go first. I mean, definitely thought about. I mean, both of us, I feel like, think ahead, on things like that, and definitely thought about. But one thing that Dustin's really, really strong at, and I try to be pretty strong at, is segmenting personal and business life, and we both were of the agreement, if this doesn't work out, we can still be friends. And we both, I think, have a personality that we can actually make that happen. I think we would both be able to put something behind us if it didn't work out and continue to be friends. But on the flip side of things, it's easy because, when I describe Dustin to somebody, I describe him as somebody that I've never not had a good time with ever. Like it's always a positive, upbeat interaction in anything, and he doesn't get upset very often. So that was one thing that made me comfortable going down that path.
Yeah. How about you, Dustin? Did you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, obviously, I did think about it. Like Michael said, I think what makes me be able to kind of toe the line from a professional and personal standpoint is, I've kind of been. This is going to sound bad, but it's true. I've kind of been through the corporate meat grinder. I've worked with people of different backgrounds. I've worked with people from different countries, and obviously I think to be successful at that, you kind of got to have that balance of personal and professional because it's hard to work with people if you don't get to know them personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the traits that I've picked up on, being on the corporate side of things, and now, for me, this is really more so an entrepreneurial type situation, for me, obviously it is for Michael, but again, to me, it's a lot easier because you don't have these huge walls, that are blocking you from connecting with people. So again, I think work should be fun, and obviously I put a lot of thought into that. But I think, like Michael said, both of us are extremely professional. We know when it's time to work, and we definitely know when it's time to play. So I think we both toe that line really well. And I would think that that's what makes our work environment here so great.
Yeah. Our guests today are Michael Culley, Dustin Kendall from Culley Mechanical. And one of the questions I have for you is people talk about partnerships or working as a team is the overlap, right? Who does what? How do you make sure like both of you aren't, like, let's use a football analogy, running the same route or making sure that nothing's getting dropped in the middle? How do you two balance that?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was pretty easy because at that point in time, I was running all the payroll, I was sending all the bills, I was doing all the accounts payable and stuff like that. And I was like, this is what I need
Mm-hmm.
immediately for you to handle. And so that was a full-time job in itself. And as we've continued to grow, we've been able to delegate a lot of that kind of stuff. And, at that point, we kind of had a playbook as we started that Dustin was going to help with our processes. and running the business as an actual business, whenever we got started. And so it was easy not to overlap because on the accounting side of things, I didn't really enjoy that anyways. And, that was getting off my plate. But now, honestly, we've got to the point, I feel like, where we've grown, and he's gotten some of that, I would call it transactional task, off of his plate. And we're kind of having to fill back out exactly who's working on what to get to the next step. But we communicate weekly, and in those meetings, we come up with tasks we want to work on, who's going to take the lead on them, and we both work on them together. Ultimately, we do work on them together, but the constant communication, I think, is the key to making sure that we don't stumble over each other all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I would add to that is, again, like Michael said, he knows this industry and this business very well. He knows the technical side, and that's what's obviously taken me time to, because you got to learn on the fly, right? So I feel like I've gotten stronger technically, and as Michael was saying, that's one of the things at first I wasn't able from an operational standpoint to jump in and kind of help and direct. Now I can do that. I'm comfortable enough. I know enough to be dangerous, whereas I would consider him an expert, right? Because he's been doing this his entire life. But like I said, I think that, as my depth and breadth of knowledge, for the industry gets stronger, I'll just be able to help a lot better on the operational side. But I think he said it perfect. We do a fantastic job of communicating. We do a fantastic job of both of us owning it, whether he may have to be out, or if I'm out, it's something that's going to get taken care of. And we never have any animosity over those situations whatsoever. It's take care of it, go on about the day. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of like yesterday when we were having our meeting with Chris, and you guys were putting our goals and priorities out there for 2025. It don't matter whose name you put beside it. It's going to get taken care of by one of these people. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, I remember that line yesterday. You said it, and I that stuck with me. Doesn't matter whose name is on it. We're gonna make sure it gets taken care of. It doesn't seem like there is oh well, Michael's name's on that, so I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
Dustin's name's on that. I'm not, like, it just seems like the two of you, and also by extension the rest of your team, have a get it done mentality. How have you guys instilled that and made sure that that's something that stays as a part of what Culley does?
Well, we've tried really hard to, kind of make a vision for everybody that when the company succeeds, everybody succeeds. And we've tried to, take care of our people very, very well and help them to see that, that if they all work together, that it's going to be a benefit for everyone. And the same thing goes for Dustin and I. We never know where our day is going to take us. We never know where our life's going to take us. Something comes up, at any point in time. And, whenever you have somebody that's not my job, that doesn't fly around here.
Yeah.
That's not how we operate. And, we're not going to allow that to happen very long at all. It's going to get dealt with immediately. And so, it may be something that was on my plate or on Dustin's plate, and something takes us away from doing that. And we'll text one another and be like, hey, can you handle this? And there's no animosity at all. It's like, yeah, done. Just consider it done. It's off your plate. Let's move on. And I think we've just done a very good job of building a team here that sees the value in all of us moving forward together.
Yeah, I love that. Talk to me about the value of coaching. Michael, I asked you a question yesterday. We work together with me as a coach in SBE, you guys, one of our SBE contractors. And I asked you, how long have you been a part of SBE? You said from the beginning, right? From the beginning of your company. Why did you think, because a lot of companies think, we're just getting started. We don't have the funds, or we're at this level. We're not there yet to be able to afford coaching and training, and because that's not in their minds a revenue generator, right? Talk to us about how you guys value coaching and training and how it's helped your company.
The value of coaching's extremely high for our company. When we started out in the beginning, I went to a couple classes with coaching companies, you guys included, and that was one of those things that my eyes were open to some things that I'd never seen before. And these were sales related classes, and just the different way of thinking about things that I never would have thought of myself. And I was like, there's got to be more there. And so it was kind of resonated the most with the trainer from SBE at that point in time of going to a training. And I was like, well, we'll think about these guys. And then our partner from distribution was willing to step up to the plate in the beginning to help with that coaching. And after we got started, it was one of those things that we're not going to stop this. It's not only just good for us as leadership, it's also good for our technicians, be able to have somebody to lean on, but also to hold us accountable as well from a leadership standpoint when we still need to be held accountable. It's real easy to not be. And if you have somebody that's bringing up these goals or things that you're working on, it really helps you to stay focused on that.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Dustin, on just coaching,
Yeah,
how it's helped you?
I would just say that just kind of piggyback off what Michael said. I think one of the most important things about coaching is, it keeps our vision on the horizon, right? We obviously are in one of the greatest trades that there is from a service standpoint. And, you think about the new equipment that we have coming out, the refrigerant changes, dealing with consumers and how the service industry is evolving as a whole. You go into people's homes. I think it keeps us on the forefront of the changing industry. It keeps our guys engaged. Like Michael said, it keeps us engaged and always looking for ways to change or do better or to execute better, because like I said, I think if you just sit back and wait, you're going to be behind your competitors. So I think it really keeps us positioned well in the market. And honestly, it keeps our guys engaged in learning, right? I think, there's been many quotes on this, but, the day you quit learning or the day you quit trying to better yourself, that's the day you die, right? So I think that's one of the really great things that it allows for us to do. And I'll tell you what, one of the most amazing things about it is seeing the change in behavior in your employees, right? You see a technician who can't even have a conversation with a customer, then 2 years down the road, they're executing on sales opportunities and hitting their goals. It's awesome, and then you see their lives changing, right? Them getting married, them having kids and buying cars. It's unbelievable to be a part of that. And I think that coaching is kind of the gasoline that speeds up that process.
Love it. That's yeah.
Thing that I failed to mention, both of us value a lot is the community as well within coaching and being able to connect to other contractors that are fighting the same battles we do in a way openly, in a way that we don't have to hold anything back. There's a lot to be said for that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like knowing that you have someone who can help hold you accountable, that community, it helps you now to get to your goals, but also, as you're saying, helps your team members to get there. And it sounds like that's extremely fulfilling, watching not just the company revenue and those measures grow, but watching the people reach their goals. Yeah. Now, as we get close to the wrap up, Dustin and Michael, let's talk about challenges, because that's what leaders deal with, right? You deal with challenges. I think you mentioned no day is like the other. Things aren't straight line. What if maybe it's a challenge that you two faced as a team that you navigated, and maybe some lessons you learned from it?
You can go ahead.
Nobody wants to go first on this one.
Yeah, this is a tough question, and obviously there's a lot of things you could use here. But I guess the first thing that came to mind for me is, dealing with disruptive employees that you've hired. We've obviously had a few of those challenges, and honestly, especially when you have them when you're busy, when you need them, but more so, it's more important for you to protect your culture instead of keeping a bad egg on board. So we've had a few of those in the past, and that's always a difficult situation, just kind of like what Michael said. We have a very tight-knit culture, tight-knit group of folks here. So it's always difficult having those conversations and dealing with situations like that. I would say that's something that we've dealt with in the past, and pretty much how we kind of described to you throughout the podcast. That was a group decision, and really we weighed the pros and cons. And ultimately we made the decision to get rid of this individual because our culture is much more important than keeping a bad egg on, although they may be a contributing member. Sometimes you've got to cut the cord before, you poison the Kool-Aid. And I think that we've had to do that several times, and that's never easy. That's always a very, very difficult thing to do. And again, we live in a smaller community, so we know these people, we know their family, we know their cousins and brothers and things of that nature. So that's always really difficult to deal with. And I feel like we've had to do that over the past couple of years a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's extremely hard for me, and Dustin has helped out a ton with that as well. But anytime that you have to have those kinds of conversations, that's a huge challenge to have to overcome. But I guess, kind of from a business standpoint, we've had to overcome some growth challenges as well and put in some processes rather than, you sell a change out and the next day you get it done. It's just kind of, you put all the pieces together in the morning to get it done or whatever. Now we're actually planning, looking out a couple of days in advance. We have processes so steps don't get dropped along the way. A lot of thanks to Dustin for helping to put those in. But that's been something that we worked through together as like a growth challenge that, pretty proud of that for sure.
Nice. I love the teamwork. I mean, and those of you watching this, you can just see the teamwork that's coming through and you can hear it coming through as you're watching this. And I just want to encourage someone who might feel I have some areas of weakness or some areas that are not my strengths to find someone that you can trust and build a team. And as Dustin and Michael have shared with us, just work together in a way that you're communicating consistently so that you are moving the business and moving things forward. All right, Michael and Dustin, I want to get you out on what our rapid fire questions. These are questions that I shoot at both of you, and you can answer in 30 seconds or less. So let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, Michael can go first.
Well, you have to pick it. So, okay, what's the best business book that you've read?
Probably the one that helped me the most starting out was EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey. That was a high-level leadership book on all aspects of the business. And as I said, when I was first getting started, I had to learn a lot about the business side of things, and that really helped me out a lot getting started.
Nice.
Oh, that's kind of a difficult question for me because I've read a bunch, but once I've got through my MBA, I haven't really picked up that many. I would say that there's a real good book called The Millionaire Next Door that I really like. I mean,
Yeah.
that to me opened my mind as far as business and not being afraid to challenge the status quo. I think that it obviously helped me a lot in my personal life, but it also helped me in my career and how I navigate my career. It basically allowed for me to not be afraid to make change and not be afraid to challenge myself.
I like it. Okay. What's one thing each of you want to be better at as a leader in the next year?
Personally, I think I'd like to be better at listening to employees and customers and truly listening to the message that they're trying to get across, and then be able to use that to help with accountability a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I would say getting better at breaking through to individuals from a coaching standpoint, being able to make it palatable to them what their problem is and what the corrective action is, being able to put that in a creative format that's easy for them to absorb and go out and make a change.
Yeah. Okay. What do Michael Culley and Dustin Kendall do to de-stress?
I love to play golf and to duck hunt. So, both of those things are getting outside, and that's probably the two things that I do to de-stress the most.
Yeah, I love golfing as well, but I love traveling and eating, man. I could eat till the cows come home.
Are you a foodie?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I like cooking, I like eating, I like traveling. I would say those are probably my two biggest ones.
Nice. Okay, here's the last one. If you both could go back in time to when you first started, Michael, Dustin, when you first came on board, what's one piece of advice you'd have given to yourself?
Probably the piece of advice I'd give myself is that everything's not going to be perfect, and that it's okay for things to not be perfect. You can continue to move forward without a perfect scenario. And you can still correct those along the way, but it doesn't hinder your path forward.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say mine is it takes time, right? You can't rush baking a cake. You can't rush time. Sometimes I think we kind of get frustrated with things taking so long to come to fruition. But again, I think patient, have humility, trust the process, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I think that's the biggest thing I would tell myself.
Awesome. Listen, our guests today have been Michael Culley, Dustin Kendall from Culley Mechanical. They've talked to us about how you work together as a team, how you complement each other. Listen, this is one that you need to share with someone who needs to build a team, someone who is working in a collaborative situation. They can learn some lessons from this. Some leader who is just trying to take their leadership to the next level, share this with them. And I just want to encourage you to continue to lead well. Thank you for listening to the Leading HVAC Podcast. If you would like to learn more about SBE, you can find us online at sbeodyssey.com. That's sbeodyssey.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would appreciate it if you would leave us a review on this podcasting platform. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.